How do we study chemistry? The first thing I have on here, I'm going to go over this part real quick. Let's start with office hours. Office hours are an important part of you studying. If you're going over your homework, your lab, or maybe you're done with the exam and you have a question over something you missed, it's a great place to get your questions answered. Besides the first office hours where I go through the lesson or I go through the class and show you where everything is, all other office hours are very casual. I show up with no agenda. For a whole hour, I sit there waiting to answer your questions. So if you are working on your homework and you know I have an office hour, you can actually use an office hour to do the homework. And then when you get stuck, you just log on, ask me your question, and then log off. You're not required to stay for the whole hour. In my lessons, I chunk up the lessons. So for example, I think I have it over here, right? If we go to the course assignments, you see that in chapter E, that was my first chapter. Chapter E is sort of long, right? I broke it up into manageable amounts based on the time I have available. So I advise you guys to chunk it up or break it up into manageable amounts, right? You're able to cover a little at a time. You have time to digest and reflect upon what you're learning. Sounding the words in chemistry is not really comprehending anything, but chemistry has a lot of layers in the information, so you really want time to unpack it. This is the textbook you guys are using right now. This is the current textbook, edition 3. So we're working on chapter E. If you go towards the end, you will see a summary, a chapter summary. So when I click on that, it shows you what the learning outcomes were or the objective for the chapters. Say you are going to do the recommended 1 hour per day working on chemistry. You can come over here and say, well, my goal is to cover the first 3 goals. So how would you spend your 1 hour of studying, you ask? Okay. Now I'm only going over studying, right, to learn this. Let's say you select 3 objectives. Okay. You will actually go over the PowerPoint slides or the textbook, and you will just focus on those same 3 objectives. So select 3 objectives. First thing is read or review PowerPoint and or textbook. You want to read just those 3. And as you're reading and reviewing the PowerPoint or textbook, take notes. Take notes of what? You want to take notes of definitions. So key definitions. Is there any image or graph that was important? Is there any law that was stated? Is there any equation that was needed? Is there any, I'm trying to think about what else we want to notice. But you want to write down important information and then maybe kind of summarize some questions. Work on homework problems pertaining to selected objectives. Okay. If you want more problems, there are extra problems right here. You have interactive work examples, concept videos, cumulative quiz. You can practice a quiz here, right? So yeah, you have the summary overview here. You have exam prep questions. You can try self-assessment quiz questions right here. This is a great area for students. I really recommend that you go through here. The area here is breaking up the textbook in a way that is meaningful for your goal, which is to study. Of course, there are videos that align with that, okay? Let's click on the quiz link. Right, self-assessment quiz. Technically, it's the same one we saw over there, but this one looks a little bit different, y'all. Okay, so come over here. You can go ahead and try this out. The great thing about this quiz, it gives you a chance to practice what the questions might look like for the exam. Your exam questions are a version of these quizzes right here. The self-assessment quiz, some of your homework problems, and then they come from a test bank, but they're similar to some of the homework problems, but more the self-assessment quiz. Take self-assessment quiz. This is right here. Once again, I'm just trying to get through this part here. So excuse my handwriting. I know it's not the greatest, but that's fine. I'm just trying to get through this part here. Take the self-assessment quiz. Our goal here is for you to get practice before the exam, right? So this is where we are right now. The next thing I want to talk about is make sure you're doing active learning. So what does active learning look like? Active learning. Active learning means you're very engaged in the process. Chemistry, as you can see, has a lot of information. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. You want to show up intentional. You want to prepare to study. I prefer having a surface where I want to be able to hold a pen. Holding pen or pencil. It doesn't have to be pen or pencil. It just has to be a writing tool. Writing, ooh, I can't spell. Writing tool, right? Like right now, I'm using an Apple Pencil. It doesn't have the same level of stimulus as a regular pencil would. Actual friction, this smooth. The surface here is a little bit too smooth for my liking, but it will do. It's better than nothing, right? If I have a board, so if I have a dry erase board, that's better for me. And of course, a marker. This for me, I would say preferred, okay? I notice that when I study and I'm on my feet, I do a lot better because my attention is kept a lot better and a lot longer. I do have attention issues, but when I'm on my feet, I'm able to focus a lot better than when I'm sitting down. So right now, as I'm doing this lesson right here, I'm actually standing on my feet. I do have a standing desk, which I can adjust. Sometimes when I'm sitting down too much, I become very how should I say, lackadaisical? I don't know if that's a word. I become too relaxed and it starts to trail off. And I don't want to do that. I want to be alert when I'm studying. So I'm usually on my feet, right? And so, yeah, make sure that you're not tired. Make sure you have eaten. Eat before studying. What to eat? I know you're thinking, well, you're just gonna study, right? Eat before studying, but don't eat too much. So let's hear not too much. What exactly is that? Your brain requires a lot of energy, and when you're studying, you're using your brain to process a lot of information, right? You don't want your brain to be fatigued. So you want to make sure that your brain is ready for the activity you're about to do. It's almost like trying to work out, right? You go to the gym and you're about to lift weights, and you plan to go there and lift weights, but then you're hungry and your muscles are fatigued. You won't be as effective, right? So eat before studying, not too much. If you're a snacker, you want to be careful about that. I I used to be a snacker when I was studying in school. Even at home, sometimes when I'm a little bit stressed out, I'll just snack while I'm doing work, right? It's just another layer of stimulus, but then I end up eating too much because I'm not even hungry anymore. I'm just eating for stimulus, right? So you want to be careful. You want to eat, but not too much. A notebook to take notes, of course. So for me, if I use a note card, I have to add pacing, okay? And this, if I add pacing to using a note card, it brings enough stimulus and enough attention in my mind to learn what is on your note card. I'm just sharing stuff with you. You don't have to do any of these things I'm sharing. I'm just trying to help you guys see that studying chemistry is a very, very active process, right? It's almost like being involved in a sport, but it's a mental sport. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So now that I've talked about all of this, remember you're solving problems and you're trying to work everything out, you're going over concepts. Oh, one thing I suggest, if you're tired, but you have to do it, and let's say you have an exam tomorrow, you have a deadline, I suggest you do exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm not saying record yourself, but I'm saying read it out loud. Okay? Read out loud. Okay, so I suggest that if necessary to help with the stimulus, read out loud. For me, I usually try to question the author. Is it something that you have to do? No. I'll kind of ask the question back to the author, though the author is not present to answer the question. Or I'll read one concept and I feel like the next concept challenges the previous concept. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just said, but I'm saying you as though the author is right there. The author is not there. But it helps, to me, it helps to bring the concepts I'm reading to life so that it's not just flat words on the paper, right? I want to add a little bit of spice and a little bit of drama to make the chemistry just that much more mysterious, right? When studying, okay? Number one, when you're studying, memorize concepts that cannot be determined logically. Okay, what does this mean exactly? How is this supposed to be a direction? What I mean by that is chemistry is one of those sciences that has a lot of information. If you approach studying chemistry with the goal of memorizing everything, your brain will just face, you will have cognitive overload and it will just start dumping things out. Okay, because it's just too much. There's too much in chemistry. And then there's so many layers. Okay. It'd be great if it was a cake, but when it's something that you're learning, it becomes too much. So the way chemistry is written more like a mystery. And when you recognize the mystery, you recognize the pattern, you recognize how chemistry is written, it really helps you break things down. So let me say right number two here. Chemistry is written like a mystery. Maybe it's a play of words. I don't know, y'all. But an observation is presented, right? Observation is shared, then the mystery is unfolded. So, what have I shared with you so far? I've just shared with you one of the many patterns that exist in chemistry. Observation first, right? Something unusual about the chemicals. Then we spend the next few slides unpacking why they act this way. How we solve problems, okay? Which would be what? Dimensional analysis. You want to know this. Oh my goodness. Analysis. There is a macro level patterns and the detailed patterns, okay? We know that using the dimension analysis method is one of the ways in which patterns are shown mathematically in chemistry. We start with the given unit and then we convert to the wanted units using a series of conversion factors. So using derived measurements as conversion factors. Conversion factors. That's a pattern in chemistry. So let me just say A, right? These are all under the patterns that if you have a derived measurement, that can be used as a conversion factor. Okay. When it comes to patterns, we know that, for example, like dissolves like, okay? This is referring to like polar dissolves polar, non-polar dissolves non-polar. Two parts of a whole. So while I'm here, I want to talk about the part to whole relationship. So there is a part to whole relationship. Okay. This is a thing. It's a thing in chemistry. Depending on the chapter or the context, at some point you will see a whole where the whole represents the whole formula, chemical formulas. Let me say it like this. Chemical formula, where the parts are the elements in the formula. In formula, okay? So the whole will be like sodium chloride, and the parts are sodium ion and chloride ion, okay? Or another scenario where we have whole part relationship, where you have sodium hydroxide as part of the whole, plus HCl to give us sodium chloride and water, and that whole balanced equation is the whole. And each of these formulas here is a part. Each reactant, each product, these are all part of a whole, okay? So there's a theme in chemistry where we see part to whole relationship. Try to think of what other themes there are, but there's so many themes. And once you see they're increasing, decreasing, there's left to right relationship, periodic table, periodic trends, right? When you notice all of this and you're able to group the information together based on the theme, it helps remembering that information easier.